Hi, I am Sarah Billington, and I am the assistant professor at Salt Lake Community College in the communication department. And this is my wonderful TA, Michelle.
Hi, my name is Michelle Maraffio, and I am Sarah Billington's mentee, as well as her teaching assistant for the communication department. I'm also a graduate student at Southern Utah, and I work full-time at the college, at Salt Lake Community College, in the academic advising department.
And today we're going to discuss advocating for women in higher education, specifically women supporting women through mentorship, and really how important that is. And so that's what we're going to discuss today with you. The first topic that we would like to discuss is just our own mentorship type experiences that we've had that have allowed us to come into this mentorship and be able to develop skills that are helpful for us in this mentorship and that have led us to be able to develop the kind of essential communication skills and other skills we need for mentorship. So my experiences that I've had have been being a mentee and a mentor. I have had one other TA, and then I've had a couple of different interns through something at the college called the Presentation Skills Lab, where I've hired interns. But I think more importantly, my experiences with TAs have been the thing that has really influenced how I've become as a mentor. Also, what's influenced me greatly is the prior women mentors that I have had that have mentored me. So when I was a mentee, and in fact, there's one specifically that helped me become a full-time faculty member from being an adjunct faculty at the college. And that person I will always remember because of the relationship we were able to build, although it wasn't maybe as strong as Michelle and I or some other mentorships I've had along the way. It definitely showed me how we definitely as mentors cannot hoard information, and that we should share as much of our knowledge and experience with our mentees as possible. And so just these experiences being a mentee and a mentor have really shaped who I am inside of Michelle and I and our mentor relationship that we have. And then Michelle also is going to share some of her experiences.
Yeah, so I have, I was late to the game starting my career. And when I started working at the college, I had a mentor. I still have her. She's still one of my mentors that really propelled my career and my academics. She really inspired me to pursue school full time. She helped guide me to finish my bachelor's degree and move on to my graduate degree. And through that experience, it really helped to develop what I want, because I didn't really have that guidance prior to that. And then when I met Sarah and became her teaching assistant, it really helped to kind of solidify what I really want and the direction I'm going, through her role modeling what being a professor looks like, and what it looks like to work in higher ed. So this relationship has been really beneficial to me, and moving forward.
Yeah. And then our next area that we want to discuss is actually Michelle's research that she did. So she's finishing graduate school, as she let all of you know, and she has research that she has done. And we feel like we actually kind of already naturally, because of our past experiences, maybe because we're communication majors and we tend to want to have good and strong and effective communication skills with each other. But she's done this research, and I want her to discuss that because I find it really interesting. And I find it interesting that she even was doing this research before we decided to do this presentation together. So Michelle, if you want to share some of the research that you found on mentoring.
Yeah, so a couple semesters ago, I took a qualitative communications class. And in this, I had to do a qualitative study research project. And so I decided to really examine the themes involved in becoming a good mentor, what makes up a good mentor. And then I used those themes to analyze how other people, maybe in the public view, mentor through oral discourse. And so I examined Michelle Obama. That was one person that I looked at because she does a lot of oral discourse mentoring to young women, specifically in her, just in the way she is. She's a natural mentor. So, and she even talks about being a mentor and what that looks like in some of the research that I found. So the themes that I found that really stuck out, the strongest themes, were altruism, which is the selfless practice of caring for the overall well-being of others, trustworthiness, the idea that someone is reliable, has integrity and honesty. These are elements that allow others to develop trust within you. Experience, the idea that a mentor has been where the mentee is, as in the case that Sarah went through graduate school. She's been where I'm at. This experience has really helped me academically, professionally, and we even support one another emotionally. Guidance. The participants in all the studies that I evaluated made it clear that they appreciated mentors who guide on the path rather than telling them what to do. This allows the mentee to make decisions that feel right to them with gentle guidance. And so that was my study. Michelle Obama was a really good person to evaluate because of her natural way of mentoring.
Very good. So the next slide, or the next part of the presentation that we want to present to you, is kind of bringing a lot of what we just talked about together, right? So first we talked about our own experiences with being a mentee or mentors. And then we also talked about the research, and with our own mentorship, I think we both are going to kind of speak on maybe those 4 areas, right? So the altruism, experience, right? And I'm blanking on the other 2. Say it again. Sorry.
Trustworthiness and guidance. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. I should have wrote them down. By the way, I just want everyone to know this is the second time that we're recording this because Zoom did not record it properly the first time. So any mess ups we have here on this video, you guys have to forgive it. Mostly just my mess up just recently. All right. So moving on. With our mentorship, we can relate in the experience, as Michelle mentioned, right, that I have been where she is currently. And so I know what it's like to try to be hustling through graduate school and finishing and trying to do a million other things and having a full-time job even at the same time. I also think that in the areas of altruism, that makes a lot of sense, right? So a lot of these things are things that if you've been in a mentorship, especially women mentors, you kind of probably already recognize these things. Excuse me. So altruism, for example, right? It's that idea of Michelle does stuff sometimes and I do things sometimes that it's not like we really want to, right? But it's more like we're doing it because we're both good-willed people and we're trying to help the other person out. One other thing I know Michelle has mentioned in the past, which just kind of came to my mind again, was this idea of this reciprocal relationship where we're both in there trying to give it our all and trying to build this positive relationship, really is what it is, with each other. And that we're both, no one is, in charge of someone else necessarily. I mean, sure, she's my TA, but even when we communicate, we try to keep it really positive. And if I think I've ever said anything offensive, I definitely would make sure Michelle was okay, and that, tell her I'm still working on my own communication skills so I could improve in that area. And so we always try to keep it to where we're both bringing in something to the mentorship, to the relationship. And really, it is a mentorship, but I like to often think of it as a relationship, actually. And so those are just a couple of those areas that I think that are here in our mentorship that we can speak to, and that the research supports. Hey, look, here are the things that good mentors have. And then we can look at our own mentor mentee relationship and say, yeah, we are doing those things, right? And then Michelle, I know you had a lot that you wanted to say about those 4 areas in our mentorship.
Yeah. So when I think about our relationship and how they relate to the themes that I found in my study, it's really interesting because I agree with you. I think that it's a relationship. It's not a you're my boss and I'm your employee kind of relationship. It's more like we are equals in a lot of ways, and the altruism goes both ways. It's not just you giving selflessly to me. I feel like I am also stepping up and wanting to do things for you because I want to, because I want you to succeed as well. I want you to be the best version of yourself that you can be as well. And and that's why trustworthiness is really important, because you need to be able to rely on me. You need to know Michelle is going to do what she says she's going to do, and that I'm going to be honest with you about whatever. And that has created a bond between us because we can rely on one another, right? And as you said, the experience, you bring to the table a level of experience that I'm still growing into, and so that's been extremely helpful for me. But I think that I bring an experience that you appreciate as well, from a student perspective, because I'm still in school, and so I'm able to kind of tell you things that I think work. And that's not just professionally or academically, but also emotionally, as we were talking about. You have young children. I have grown children. My kids are all grown up. And so I've been where you are in that way. And I get it. Like, I get flying all night on an airplane with small children and having to do it alone because for whatever reason. And so I can really empathize with that because I remember what that was like. And just all those struggles that we have as women. I relate to you and you relate to me, which I think is really important when we are trying to grow professionally or academically and even emotionally. And that guidance, that it kind of just all leads to the next thing, right? Like your experience and then the guidance, and you definitely help guide me. You don't necessarily tell me what to do, and I really appreciate that. Autonomy is a big deal when we're trying to evolve and grow and become good people or good employees or whatever, good professors, or whatever that looks like. And so that's kind of where I'm at with things and with our relationship and how it works for me. I think it's awesome.
Well said. I literally at this moment in time could not have said any of that any better myself. So really, really well done. The last slide actually that we're going to address is just this idea that I think we all know of as women supporting women. We're going to talk about some of the challenges that are out there that we just have to deal with, and maybe some solutions, right? One of them obviously being this idea of mentorship and really grasping on to having a mentor, being a mentee. So the first thing is the challenges. Did you want to talk about the gender pay gap, Michelle?
Yeah, so we talked about that article. Well, we found an article written a couple of years ago. I believe it was KSL, right? I think it was KSL.
Yeah, it was.
And it was a KSL article that talked about the gender pay gap specifically in Utah. So the national average for women to men is 80% to 100%. So we make 80 cents to the dollar to men nationally. That's just, those are the facts. Then in Utah, women make 70 cents to the dollar to men. So if we're 70% to 100% what men make. There are factors that play in to why that happens, many of it being women are choosing to stay home, women are choosing jobs that pay less, things like that. But that doesn't change the fact that, women are still in jobs that are equally qualified to men and they're getting paid less. That is happening. And so, those kinds of struggles help to, basically why we need mentorship when a gender pay gap happens like that is because we need more women in higher positions, because without those women leadership roles, we don't have, that opportunity of raising each other up. And some of that is because women can be very competitive, and they have to be, to compete with males, right? Because males are competitive, so we have to be competitive. But kind of setting that aside and recognizing that we need to empower one another to kind of level out the playing field. We need to equal out the playing field to get that gender pay gap up. And that kind of leads us into the hegemony, male-dominated work field, right? And you were going to talk about some of that in academics, Sarah.
Yeah, so I was just going to mention this male-dominated structure that we know it exists, right? It's there and it's in higher ed. I think some people feel it more than others. So I was just going to speak to some of my experience. And, we had mentioned before, Michelle, that in my department, the majority of faculty in communication are women. However, in your experiences in higher education as a staff personnel and as a student in graduate school, you said you've experienced all of your professors in the communication department, which historically communication departments across the United States often can be at times more female dominated, depending on if it's a college or university, et cetera. But your experience has been that there's definitely this male domination that's happening in higher education, even to this day, which
Yeah.
I guess I was a little surprised by that, because just in my experience, it hasn't felt like that as much. But again, right, this is just a difference of my narrative versus your narrative and the experience that you're having. So I didn't know if you wanted to talk about that.
Yeah. So as I said, I go to Southern Utah University and I love it. It's a great school and I have fantastic professors in the graduate program. But they're all men, every last one of them. I have not had a female professor at Southern Utah. I have not once, not for my bachelor's degree or my graduate degree. I have not had a professor that is a woman. So that's significant. And, I took history classes, I took geology classes, I took communication classes, not one woman. So that has been telling to me. My male mentors, my male professors are wonderful. They can't relate to me in the same way that having a relationship with Sarah does, or some of my professors that I had at the community college when I went to Slick. It's different. It's just different.
Yeah, and that I think would lead us to our third challenge, right? So because of that difference, we could say, and another challenge, another reason to have mentorships. And then also the third one is imposter syndrome. So there's been a lot of research on this. There's been a lot of talk about it. I think here in UWHEN, we've well, I know in you when we've definitely addressed this idea of imposter syndrome. But with imposter syndrome, it seems as if, well, it doesn't seem, the research suggests, right, that men experience it less than women do. And so I find this fascinating. And Michelle, did you want to kind of share just an experience
Yeah.
that you had even, I think, last semester or the
Yep.
beginning, with that idea of imposter syndrome? Because by the way, I've definitely had it as well. And that's what I let Michelle know.
Yeah. So last semester, I was at, I don't even remember the circumstance, what happened, but I remember saying to Sarah, I don't feel I feel like I'm BSing my way through my classes. I don't feel like I'm really smart. I don't feel like I'm really like this is I mean, how are they letting me do this? How are they letting me get away with this? And she reminded me, I knew about it. She just reminded me, she said, Michelle, what you're experiencing is imposter syndrome, and what you're feeling is completely normal. Everyone who goes through this feels the same way. And you're doing the work, you're getting good grades, you're fine. Stop it. And she was very empathetic and really understood what I was feeling. And and it reminded me, I was like, yeah, you're right. You're right. You're right. I'm doing a good job. I mean, look at this paper I just wrote. It's amazing. I did that.
That's
So
right. Yeah. And I think, so that's a great example right there, right? Of how, as I think women, we struggle with it just a little bit more, right? And the reasons for that, well, there's a plethora, I think, of reasons why that is happening in society more for women than men. I wonder if there's ways to eventually even out that playing field or figure out how to back away from it. But that's not what this topic is about. So the last thing we're going to talk about, and we're going to wrap it up here because I think we're starting to run a little bit low on time, is solutions. And so those three that are mentioned there in the PowerPoint say support each other, role modeling, and of course, mentorship. So while we know that these challenges exist, and we recognize these challenges aren't really anything new, I think a lot of you already know that they exist. If you haven't felt them personally, you know that they're there for women in general, in higher ed, and in other industries. So solutions, though, are definitely women supporting each other and women role modeling for other women. And then also this women to women mentorship and just how vital and important that is. And then Michelle, did you want to address the
yeah.
Forbes article?
Yeah, so we found this Forbes article that was just written in 2000, well, it looks like it was written in 2017. And it was kind of an appeal to women to become mentors, just as we're doing in this presentation here. And there's a quote that was written in the article that says, research shows that successful CEOs reached the top because they sought out mentors along the way. In a survey of 1,250 top executives, 2/3 reported having a mentor, and 29% of the respondents out-earned their unmentored colleagues. They also reported being happier than those who did not have mentors. And so specifically, when you're thinking about that, 29% of the respondents, 29% out-earned their unmentored colleagues. That's significant. That's a good chunk of people that, are happier because they had mentors and they out-earned their unmentored colleagues. That's a big number.
Absolutely. So I think with those challenges and those kind of solutions we have, and again, really pushing all of us to continue to either be mentees or mentors, but having that relationship, right? Being in a mentorship is so important. And hopefully we've been able to kind of testify to that today and to really show you what we think based off of research and based off of our experiences and this mentorship that we have, what we think creates and makes up a good woman-to-woman mentorship and how vital and important they really are. So without further ado, our last slide is just Q&A time, which we will be live for. And we just want to thank you for listening to and watching our presentation.
Yeah, thank you. We'll see you soon.
Bye.